The Night Angel. Wow. Looking back on this story, I'll be perfectly honest. This story is undoubtedly a look back on a trial by fire for me, and also a series of firsts. Don't get me wrong. I love this story. In fact, the more I look back on it, the more I really want to sit down, rewrite and edit it, fix it up a little bit, and then publish it. Because this story is one that I have a great deal of passion and love for. But knowing where I was when I first wrote it, and what was going on in my life when I was creating it, and also the series of struggles and hurdles I had to face in creating it, man, I can tell you, with no degree of sarcasm and no degree of irony, this was indeed a trial by fire in a series of firsts. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, let me break down the story for you first, and then I will explain why this story resonates with me so much. The story follows a young woman by the name of Rebecca Anderson. Rebecca Anderson is a young lady who isn't really into, the crowd at school. She's not really into, shopping or boyfriends or stuff like that. No, she likes to do other things. She likes camping. She likes riding around on her motorcycle. She likes hanging out in the woods at night, and she likes hunting monsters. Yes, she is a monster hunter. She is actually a well-trained, well-seasoned monster hunter, and that includes the likes of werewolves, vampires, zombies, hags, all kinds of things that go bump in the night. She knows how to hunt them, and she has lots of tools at her disposal to do it. Her father taught her from a young age how, but her father really wants her to kind of drift away from that and actually have a life of her own. She's never really understood why, because she just always feels alive at nighttime when the moon is out and things are going her way. Well, one night while she's out hunting, a routine kind of thing, she comes across a group of vampires who are very worried about something, some big event that's coming, some big entity that's on the way that they refer to as S. Nothing more than that, just S. They also call her a night angel. She doesn't know what that means, so she goes to tell her father, and her father panics, but won't explain why that name is such a big deal. Then the house gets attacked, and when the house is attacked, her father is forced to flee and tells her to head up the country, head on a cross-country trip to go find an associate of his named Joshua Raines, who can answer all of her questions and help her figure out what to do, because it looks like something really big is happening and she's at the center of it. So she takes off, meets a few people along the way, some friends, some enemies, and eventually finds Joshua Raines and learns what she is exactly. There is a reason for her love of the night, a reason why she's so good at hunting monsters. She is a night angel, and she has to learn what that means, what that entails, and why that is so important for what's to come later. She also learns she's not the only one of her kind. Joshua is also a night angel, and through his training and his tips, she begins to really hone her craft as a monster hunter and potentially a god slayer. So, quite frankly, yeah, I had a lot of fun approaching this, and you can probably see some of the ideas behind it. Like, for example, Rebecca Anderson. I got the name literally from Alexander Anderson from Hellsing Ultimate, because Alexander Anderson is just such a Giga Chad, and I just really wanted to use the name, so that's where Rebecca Anderson comes from. Many people look at her design and assume that I took it from Katniss Everdeen from the Hunger Games. Believe it or not, I never read the Hunger Games up until that. Like, I did read the first one after that point, but I never got into it. No, she was not meant to be modeled after Katniss Everdeen. That was not the goal. Actually, when I was thinking about her design, I had no real background or idea of what I was looking for, and I'll tell you why. Because, like I said, this was a series of firsts. This is the first story I ever wrote about a female main character. Up until this point, I'd never written a female main character. I'd written a lot of superhero stories about self-insert superheroes or superhero concepts or Justice League ideas, or I'd written fan fictions about video game characters or comic book characters that I wanted to see do certain stuff. I'd written a lot of male characters. This was the first female main character I'd ever written, and when trying to come up with the design, I was just thinking, if I was a female, if I had been born a girl and had a female look, what would it look like? And I just kind of designed it that way. And Hannah, who did a lot of the art for this story, who really loves the story, by the way, she did a really cool series of comic pages showing the opening scene of the story. She designed Rebecca to very much look that way. So yeah, Rebecca Anderson is basically designed to look like a female version of me. And I don't mind that, because honestly, Rebecca did kind of turn into a self-insert. Like I said, I had no experience in terms of writing female characters. So when I was trying to write Rebecca, it was a little nerve-wracking. I was nervous. How do you write a female character when you are not yourself a female? Everyone says write what you know. I've never agreed with that to the full extent. Yes, write what you know, sure, but why limit yourself to that? I mean, George Lucas doesn't know anything about living in space, and yet he wrote Star Wars. You know what I'm saying? J.R.R. Tolkien did not live in a fantasy world with elves and dwarves, but he wrote Lord of the Rings. If we were just limited to write what you know, then we wouldn't be able to create some of the most fantastical and amazing stories out there. Sometimes you have to take what you know and expand on it and use your imagination for a little bit extra. So that's what I did with Rebecca. Yes, a lot of her personality is based on my own, but I also played into another area as well. I talked to my mother, my female cousin, Hannah, a couple of other people who are all women, and I kind of asked questions about, in this situation, in that situation, what are some areas that you would see yourself responding with? How would you act in this scenario? What's your relationship to this kind of thing? And through all those conversations, I kind of took this female persona of mine and gave her my personality, but twisted and bent it in just a way to make it feel more female. She has a very emotional side to her. She has different priorities than perhaps I would. She's very quick to react to certain things that I might not be quick to react to. Building Rebecca was, again, a first, but also a trial by fire, because I was worried that people would be upset. Like, people would say, this isn't the way a girl acts. You don't know anything about women. But the more I thought about it and the more I shared it with Hannah, the more Hannah kind of said, nah, this feels believable. This does feel like the way some girls would act. And that's what really opened my eyes to the idea of, women are not that different from men in terms of us being human, in terms of us having emotional bonds to certain things. We may react to things differently, sure, and that was something I had to learn, but I had no reason to be so afraid of, oh man, I hope I capture this right. I didn't need to be afraid of that as much. The other thing that was a trial by fire and a first for me was this was my first real horror story or grit story, because it's hard to call Night Angel a horror story because it doesn't have all the horror elements. It has monsters, but not in the sense of Dracula hunting down people one after another or anything like that. There are scary elements though, and I think that was the big thing, especially adding S, the primary antagonist, at making his personality, making the horror element behind him was difficult, because I'm not used to writing horror. I'm not used to writing those dark, scary moments or scary characters, but I really did enjoy writing S and writing these more frightening elements. I had to draw some ideas from stuff like Hellsing, but also, believe it or not, I drew a lot of emphasis from the show Supernatural. Now, before anyone jumps on my case about that, let me be clear. I liked Supernatural for the first season or two before I really lost interest, because what drew my attention to Supernatural was not the story so much as it was the concept. Two brothers traveling cross country, killing ghosts and monsters and things that go bump in the night in a world that largely doesn't understand that kind of stuff. That, to me, was awesome. Me and my brother loved that, because we could swap ideas about what would happen if you or I, bro, were just riding around in a car, going across country, killing legions of the undead or monsters or ghosts or stuff like that. Would that not be awesome? And he said, yeah. And so Rebecca is very much embodying that idea as well. So I really wanted to embody this sense of a person who travels around the country, or even the world potentially, and protects the world from things that they don't know about and maybe don't need to know about. And I really enjoyed following that. There are also some other elements as well in there. Like, for example, we later see a legendary sword, the Honjo Masamune, come into effect. And this went into the idea that, sometimes the relics or things of the past that we have today could actually have some holy or meaningful elements behind them. I also played around with the idea of different religious pantheons being involved in today's world. Like, some people thought that I got influence from the American Gods franchise. I didn't know anything about that when I made this. I just made my own rules about how all the pantheons worked off of each other and associated with each other, and it was different. I'll say that. It was different. There were a lot of influences and references that I could have drawn from. Sometimes I think that I drew stuff from Percy Jackson, other times from Supernatural. Like, there were lots of ways that there were probably a lot of things that I drew from, if I'm being honest. But like I said, this story was a series of firsts and a trial by fire. It was the first time I dipped into a franchise, sorry, not a franchise, but a genre that I was not used to. It was the first time I wrote a female character. It was the first time that I tried writing a story that didn't involve the hero necessarily getting everything their way, because Rebecca doesn't get everything her way. There are things that she loses. A friend of hers gets killed. She doesn't always get things her way. Yes, I mean, I did give it sort of a happy ending. Sort of, kind of, not really. Because while they defeat S, he still gets what he wants in the end, which I think I was inspired by Apollyon and For Honor for that, because Apollyon dies, but she still gets what she wants. So, in a sense, it's a Pyrrhic victory. You know, she won, but not entirely did she win, which opened the door for a sequel, which a couple of my friends said that I should write. But I'm not comfortable writing a sequel for the Night Angel until I have completely figured out how I want to fix the Night Angel. Like I said, it's one of my older stories. This is a very old one. I wrote this back when I was still a freshman in college. And like I said, I'd been a very juvenile, novice writer at the time. I was not very good with writing just yet. I was still finding my pace, finding my style, finding my rhythm in terms of writing. And I had to work at it. I really had to figure out what I was doing and how I was approaching it. So because of that, I have a lot of misgivings about the story, a lot of areas that I would fix, a lot of things that I'd draw out, a lot of dialogue I would rewrite. There's a lot of things I want to change about the story before I consider publication or before I consider sequels. However, I did write a number of short stories. For example, Hannah wanted me to write a crossover between Rebecca working alongside her Reaper character. And my buddy Jay had me write Rebecca working alongside one of his cool characters who was a Dreamwalker, who basically has the ability to enter dreams and fight nightmares that exist within them. And he teamed up with Rebecca because there was a monster who was causing nightmares, and so they had to team up to deal with the monster and the nightmares that the monster was creating. So the two had to work as a team. Rebecca has given me the opportunity to dip into other people's stories and tales and have her interact with other characters, which I had not done other than with Tomoki, and even with Tomoki, it was with limited success. Because with Tomoki, anytime you have Tomoki crisscross with another character, Tomoki is usually the most powerful character because he's a Saiyan. Rebecca is not the most powerful character in her story. She's not the most powerful individual. And sometimes when she teams up with someone, she's not the most powerful person that she teams up with. Like, I would argue that Hannah's character, the Little Reaper character, is stronger than Rebecca is in terms of raw power. But Rebecca herself is just such a fascinating character that I didn't mind writing in that end. And I think that's what made Rebecca so fun. She's not super strong. Like, I didn't go the direction of she's a strong, independent woman. Like, yeah, she doesn't need a man to do everything for her. She proves that. And she's also very reliable and resourceful. She's not an unintelligent girl, but she needs to train. She needs to learn. She needs to grow. She needs help, and she's certainly not the strongest thing ever. Like, she gets her butt whooped a couple times by her superiors, but I think that was kind of the charm, seeing how she outwitted or outsmarted the problem, how she worked her way up from this girl who barely understood the world that she was in. Like, even though she already knew monsters existed and how to fight them, she still was barely scratching the surface of the larger monster world, which I really enjoyed kind of having her explore. There's just so much that I really liked about the story, but there are also things I don't like. Now, when I do these story sharing videos, I try to share the things that I thought were good and things that I thought were bad. I already explained a lot of the good. I hope I explained some of the bad, but if I were to give one more bad, honestly, I think the bad was, again, largely because I was a new writer and because I was still learning my pacing and how I wanted to approach this. I think that there were times that I could have, now that I think about it, I just realized another major influence for the story was the Witcher series. I think that The Witcher 3 was an enormous influence on the story, and I'm sorry that I forgot to mention it, which is where I go into the bad. I think that one of the problems was I tried to make Rebecca too much like characters like Geralt or the Winchester boys. I think I was so, again, it comes down to the fact that I wasn't sure how I wanted to write her because I was so nervous to write this brand new character. I tried to model her a lot off of these individuals that I was inspired by, like Alexander Anderson, with Geralt of Rivia, and the Winchester brothers. I wasn't sure if I was creating an original character. I think a part of me sees the original character there, but another part of me sees a lot of the influences, and because of that, there are moments where I just go, she could have been better. She could have been a lot better. But that's pretty much all I have to say about The Night Angel. It is a story that I'm very proud of and that I do want to go back and fix and, make into something even better. But I wanted to share that with you guys because apparently I hadn't talked about it with you guys yet, and I really did want to. So hope you guys liked it. Hope you guys watched this video up to this point. If you did, you're a true fan. Thank you so much. If you didn't, well, you didn't hear this part anyway, so anyway. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you in my next video. Take care.